When we have an experience that's arousing and emotionally intense, like a trauma, what happens is the brain's releasing all these neuromodulators like noradrenaline that will promote plasticity. But what's interesting is part of that memory that's formed is the sort of the threat response that comes up, for instance, during a traumatic event like a near-death experience, like you get into a car accident or something. And so your brain is sort of revving up your body to try to cope with this trauma and to deal with it somehow. And so what happens when we remember a traumatic event is often it's accompanied by that bodily response, the visceral feeling of remembering. Now, what's interesting is that the brain systems involved in generating those visceral feelings are not quite the same as the ones that are important for remembering the context and actually remembering details. So sometimes when people can remember details of events, but it won't feel as vivid as when they have that intense visceral feeling of remembering. And that's when people will say, I have a vivid memory. Even if they don't have any more detail, it's that physical feeling of re-experiencing it that comes into play. So in things like cognitive behavior therapy, there's two parts of it that are very important. One part is dealing with that visceral sense, and that is the behavior therapy part. And another is the part that you mentioned, which is reframing these experiences, which is the cognitive part. So the old school idea of therapy is, the truth will set you free. And I think like Freud had some quote, something like, the art of like therapy is or psychoanalysis is to convert like intense trauma into everyday misery or something like that. I'm probably
Yeah.
misquoting it, but it's something along those lines. But being aware and processing something isn't necessarily going to make it go away. As you point out, you can re-traumatize people. And part of the cycle of post-traumatic stress disorder is, in fact, recurring memories of these traumas in different contexts that lead the memory to become more and more generalized to more and more places and situations, which make it then come out more and more. So, what's important is to be able to look at the experience differently. That's a big part of it. So, we often tend to think of memories as objective records of the past, but they're very perspective dependent and they're very rooted in interpretation. And the same memory that can be associated with shame can be thought of as a story of courage and survival. It can be thought of as a learning experience sometimes. And so these are things that we can get through sharing memories with other people. So I used to do group therapy during my clinical training. And one of the biggest things that I learned was, I used to think group therapy is just watered down individual therapy because I'm trying to do therapy to 10 people. And it's totally not like that, because if you share a traumatic memory with a group, someone else can look at your story and reflect it back to you from a different perspective. And now you can incorporate this different perspective into your memory. But what happens in groups is people often put in their story into the mix. And it's kind of like as one person puts in their story, another puts in their story, you get this new narrative that's not about any one person. And it's not a story that's all about you. And you can take these different perspectives and incorporate them into something that, again, is reframed from being a story of shame and guilt or threat to one of courage and survival.